by golly gosh, George, they've done it. The Texas Rangers have won the World Series. Nothing? Nothing?
Okay.
We're recording this.
It's live.
It's awkward that you're not responding to that comment. Wow.
Yeah, I just didn't know what to say. Like, the Rangers, by golly, George, they won it.
I believe it was by golly gosh, George, they've done it. And there was a lot more enthusiasm. I mean, I'm pretty sure I nailed it. Like, I got the Oscar. I don't think that's a question.
You got it.
You, as supporting actor, are never going to work again.
Wait till next year. I'll be back stronger than ever.
Best shape of his life. He went to Driveline. Oh, my goodness. All right, but we are back. My name is Mason. His name is Gautam, and we're here to talk about baseball. And we would be remiss to not start the episode talking about the elephant in the room. The Texas Rangers have won their first World Series since coming into the league as the Washington Senators way back in 1961. So, claps for the Rangers, everybody. All right. Now, before we get talking about the main topic of the night, being that very same World Series that we just congratulated them on, we do have some This Week in Baseball. We've got some other discussions around some stuff that's going to be coming up very soon, and then we will get back into our main topic. But before I get into that, Gautam, how are you feeling now that it's over and everything that you do every day of your life, fantasy baseball, watching baseball, preparing for this podcast by watching that baseball is over? Are you okay?
No, I'm not. I'm never okay on this day. And like right after the World Series, like I'm happy that the team won, but I'm like, oh man, here we go. Here's winter. I got to watch Letterkenny all off season long.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Letterkenny is amazing. If you haven't watched it, do it.
Yeah, that's true. But it's not the same as baseball.
True. It's very true. Now you could just watch Twilight on repeat because it does have a baseball scene.
Ooh, okay. I'll keep that under consideration.
Yep.
We
will set a watching schedule for all of the baseball movies we could think of, and then we'll just do episodes on those movies.
And how unrealistic all the baseball movies are.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Actually, that's not the worst idea, actually, now that I think about it out loud. Like, it's not amazing, but it would be good.
I feel like it would be a little fun.
Oh, that's true. So Bunk here in the chat says Letterkenny has a baseball throwing part in it. That is very true.
I got to get to that scene.
Yes, you do. As someone who's seen that scene, yes, you do. It is memorable, I think is the way to phrase that. So, all right. Well, I guess we should probably get to talking about the stuff that we're here to talk about. This week in baseball, there has been a lot going on, and a lot of it has been today, because we are less than 24 hours, I believe, from the end of the World Series. Is that correct?
Yep.
Which means that we are slightly less than 24 hours into the offseason for all the teams, meaning things are starting to happen. As we mentioned last week, Craig Counsell was interviewing with the Mets. Well, this week he actually interviewed with the Cleveland Guardians, which I think we also said was a likely interview spot for him, and kind of makes sense. The funniest part to me was he went to lunch, he had the interview, and then by the time he was leaving the interview, he was quoted as saying he's really interested in the Mets job. Like, dude, you're still in Cleveland. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to work in Cleveland either, especially when a New York job with your old boss that you really liked working with is available. Leave the city first. Like,
yeah.
Come on, man.
Is that like just a straight like leverage play to say like, oh, I just like do another interview? I feel like I'll be surprised if he just picks Cleveland of the two.
I mean, yeah, I imagine it's a leverage thing to try and get more money if Cleveland's willing to offer it. But at the same time, I think it might legitimately just be he's really interested in working for the Mets. Yeah. And David Stearns knows him well. It's not like there's like a interview, will they, won't they sort of thing. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
He knows him.
I'd be surprised if we found out, oh, David Stearns says that Craig Counsell has not, been offered the job. Like, I feel
not
like
a good fit for the Mets organization.
Yeah, it's whether Counsell wants it or not more than anything.
Yeah, which is, I think, kind of where this whole I'm really interested comes into play. It's like, okay, the Mets is the obvious job then for Counsell. It's not a sure thing, but Uncle Steve's more than willing or more than likely to make that happen. I think Stearns is probably going to push for it. Counsell clearly wants it. And I think it's a good fit nonetheless. Like, even like take Stearns out of the picture. If you had any of the active managers in Major League Baseball available, come and take over your franchise, which one would you want? Like, there's probably like a top 5 list, and I feel like Counsell's probably on that, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got to be one of the top 5 managers in the game right now.
Yeah, so it seems like a no doubt. But anyway, it's still news because he still interviewed with Cleveland, which he should have, and he did. He then also said this before he even left their city, which is just hysterical to me. Today, we actually got a lot of news, though. His Counsell was kind of the only thing for like the last 5 days. Well, today we found out Nelson Cruz is officially retiring, which Nelson Cruz has had a really good career, especially later on. Like, I don't have his numbers pulled up in front of me. Do you remember how many home runs he had? It was just short of 500, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And like he's 496 kind of or something?
I don't know if it was that close, but
464.
He's kind of he's kind of the poster child of late bloomer. He didn't even become a full-time player until he was in his late 20s, like 27, 28. And he seemed to get better over time. Once he became a full-time player, he had a lot of different stops in different places and was really successful with a lot of those teams like the Rangers and the Mariners.
Pretty much everyone but the Rays.
And that was kind of when he finally started to hit his decline. It seemed like the guy was going to continue to hit forever, and then all of a sudden it just kind of went south from there.
Yeah. But
awesome career.
Yeah, amazing career. But the man was a career 274, 343, 513 hitter with 464 career home runs and a 128 WRC plus. He was a 40.7 WAR player as a primary DH, I think, for most of his career, right? Because he wasn't really an outfielder for all that long.
Yeah.
So, like, that's an absolutely outstanding career, especially for a DH, where I think, like, Edgar Martinez, I think his career WAR was maybe 30 something. Like it.
I don't think it was that low. It's probably like 60.
Was it? Why do I feel like it was lower? Oh, 65.5. You're right. I don't know why I thought it was lower. But either way, phenomenal career for Nelson Cruz. So with him the last couple of years kind of bouncing team to team, it makes sense that he retires now. But it did seem like it was a little bit of an underwhelming announcement for it. He just kind of came across trade rumors. I feel like a guy like him, you would think it would be just a little bit more of a deal.
Yeah.
But, oh well. Then a lot of the other moves today were about extensions and options. So Joe Jimenez signed a 3-year, $26 million extension as a reliever? Starter?
Yeah.
With
He's
the Braves?
Reliever. Yep. Oh. And I guess that's the going rate for a reliever. He's not even like a particularly exceptional reliever. Like, he's good, but apparently, I mean, the Braves are doing what they like to do, which is give their players extensions. And
it did seem like a lot of money for a reliever to me today. It kind of reminded me, not quite of Brett Cecil, but it didn't remind me of Brett Cecil.
It's the same idea, right? Anytime you give like a older reliever, Jimenez is 29 already, a multi-year deal, like those do not have a good track record. Actually, like they have a terrible track record. There's very few relievers that have ever, been really worth their contracts if they get like a 3+ year deal.
Yeah, that's fair. But an extension that does seem very well worth the money, and actually probably a little bit more now that I think about it. I didn't realize that whenever I read it earlier. Max Muncy and the Los Angeles Dodgers agreed to a 2-year, $24 million extension. That kind of seems cheap for Muncy, doesn't it?
That's ridiculous. Yeah, I didn't even realize it was that low. I mean, I realize he's like getting up there in age. He's about 30. Maybe he's not that old. He's not
that old.
Yeah,
he's like what, 31, 32?
He's 32 or 33, yeah.
He is 33.
Yep. But that's an incredibly team-friendly deal for a guy that he had a weird season. He had a more like Schwarber-esque season. A lot of power. Terrible batting average and lots of walks. I feel like Schwarber and Muncy are similar type players.
Yeah, 212 average, but a 333 OBP, 36 home runs. It's a little weird, but like still, at least for Muncy, there's like not terribly negative defensive value. Like he's not amazing by any means on defense, but he's not like he's big fine. Liability either.
Yeah.
So like with Schwarber, it's like you get all power, you get no average, and you get no defense. Muncy almost feels like a slight upgrade over that because you sacrifice a little bit of power on the scale of 11 home runs for significant defensive upgrade over Schwarber. And at 33 years old, he's getting 12 million a year. So it feels like a good move by the Dodgers, especially to keep a fan favorite there. Like, really good move, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And the third base free agent market, not good. So makes sense. Extend them.
Yeah. We also have the Minnesota Twins making some moves today. And their moves are by keeping around their guys in Max Kepler and Jorge Polanco for one more year. Both of those players had team options. Both of them were picked up by the Twins today. So keeping their third baseman in Polanco and their right fielder Max Kepler there for one more year. So this is a team that went from being incredibly disappointing to being a postseason contender, made it all the way to the championship series, not championship series, division series against the Houston Astros. Won their first postseason series since 2000 and forgot the year already. 2000.
It's a long time.
2?
Yeah, something like that. 2004, I think. Yeah,
this is a long time.
That was the last time they won a game, at least.
Yeah. 2004 was the last time they won a game. 2002 was the last time they won a series.
Okay.
So both were right. That's right.
No, this one was a no-brainer. Like they're 10 million for Kepler, 10.5 million for Polanco. They're both, starting caliber players. Like Twins didn't have to think twice about this decision.
Yeah, and like Kepler seems like the more obvious, like absolutely do it, with the fact that like Buxton, he's not going to be playing in the outfield. It doesn't seem like all that much next year. So you've got Larnach and Kirilloff, who have also been kind of injury prone, and also with Larnach not always in the majors. So kind of makes sense to keep Kepler around for one more year as you figure out the outfield. With Polanco, you've got Royce Lewis now, who, assuming he's healthy, is probably going to be manning third, right? Which is kind of Polanco's.
So Polanco becomes kind of the utility man because they got Edouard Julien too.
Yeah, so it's like Polanco's probably playing second or being a utility.
I think he's going to move around, play second, third, first.
That's fair. So both really good moves by the Twins, but those did happen today. And obviously, based on that, the offseason has officially started. I think players can start signing now too, right?
5 days.
5 days?
Yep.
All right. So 5 days till players can start signing. We will have the non-tender deadline soon.
I think it's later on.
Is it? Because I know there were a lot of players that were getting non-tendered today. But I didn't know what the deadline was officially. I forgot to look that up. And then the winter meetings in December are probably when things are going to start kicking off. Right around Christmas time. We'll see with the second year of the collective bargaining agreement if things kind of do spur off during the winter meetings. I think a lot of the things are probably going to hinge around what Ohtani does, right?
Yeah, and I can't imagine Ohtani is going to make a hasty decision. I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah, and the other guy that probably going to be a factor in here too is Yoshinobu Yamamoto over from the Oryx Buffaloes in Japan. I think he's one of the bigger international free agents we've had in a long time too, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So basically probably the biggest since Ohtani, obviously not quite to the same extent as Ohtani since he's only a pitcher, but the dude's really good. And the last note here on This Week in Baseball is the qualifying offer is set at $20.325 million for 2024. So that will be a factor for a lot of players as well. I did see earlier, did you know Lourdes Gurriel is actually not eligible for it based on his contract and not any other qualifications for a qualifying offer?
What was with his contract?
Apparently he had a clause in there where he couldn't be offered a qualifying offer.
Huh. Okay.
So thought that was interesting.
I know you can if you're traded, but he got traded before the season, so
yeah.
I don't know if that's like part of it, but maybe not.
Maybe I'd have to do a little more looking into it, but I did see that he was one of the guys not eligible for it that would have otherwise probably been considered. So, all right. Anything else for This Week in Baseball?
Don't think so. The non-tender deadline is November 17th.
November 17th. So we got about 15 days. So 2 weeks from tomorrow. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about is that now that the World Series is over, it is officially award season. We've been waiting since the end of the regular season for some of these awards, and others, I think, go a little bit undernoticed. And the main one of those is actually the Roberto Clemente Award. And this is an award that I kind of just wanted to give a little bit of love to here. It's bestowed annually to the player who best represents the game of baseball through extraordinary character, community involvement, philanthropy, and positive contributions both on and off the field. So this is basically the main award that is given to just good people and not necessarily good baseball players. Even though you also tend to be a good baseball player. So this year, this award has already been given out. It was given out during Game 3, I believe, of the World Series to Aaron Judge. I don't think this is an award that we've talked about in the last 2 years.
I can't recall who won the last few years.
Neither can I. So I figured it was worth giving just a little.
So
bit
that's
of love
on us.
here.
We should know who wins this because it matters. It's a good award.
Yeah, it is. So I just wanted to give a little bit of love to Aaron Judge here. So basically, back in 2016, when he broke into the majors, he started putting together his plans for the All Rise Foundation. And by 2020, it was a major foundation that was helping people in Bronx County, New York, the San Joaquin County, California, which is around the Stockton area where he grew up. And then I believe can't remember which other county in California it was. I think it was one down kind of around the LA area. But basically those 3 areas, he has been providing money and different events and help promoting education, health, well-being, reading, literacy, and leadership among youth. Basically, however he can. Like, there's not like any one specific thing. It's not that Aaron Judge goes out and always has baseball camps, and that's the only thing that he does. He's actually partnered with the Linden, California schools, providing JBL headsets to 100 fourth graders. The Central California Blood Center, he's provided some money to them and helped them get some blood drives set up to help and supply blood for all the area hospitals. LiveBits, Glue Mobile Inc., a whole bunch of other organizations that he helps through his foundation. And because of all of that across multiple states, he was given the Clemente Award this year. So,
yeah, I love Aaron Judge. He's a very relatable superstar, even though he's like a insanely good baseball player. He feels like a normal guy.
He fixed the tooth gap, and I don't like it.
Yeah, that was some real snobbish superstar behavior. But other than that, like, Aaron Judge is a model for anyone who, needs a role model or whatever.
Yeah. So what other awards do we have coming up, Gowie?
I don't know what we have coming up, but I know that Cody Bellinger won the Comeback Player of the Year, which is another good award.
Give me a hint. I gave all the ones coming up in the rundown.
We got Gold Gloves, Silver Slugger, all the regular awards. I don't know.
So Gold Gloves will be announced this Sunday, November 5th. And just kind of looking through the nominees, there was kind of one big one that stood out to me that I kind of wanted to ask you about. The last 9-10 years, the third baseman National League Gold Glove has gone to Nolan Arenado. He is not a finalist for the first time in his career this year. Last year, I know that you had thought that Ke'Bryan Hayes was snubbed, and honestly, I kind of agreed with you that based on the play on the field, Ke'Bryan Hayes was snubbed. Is this the year that he gets the award?
I think he's going to win this award, and there's a chance that he also wins the Platinum Glove. He's one of the best fielders in the league, and he's now proven that basically his entire time that he's been in the majors, that he is absolutely elite.
So he just needs to figure out how to get a Silver Slugger at the same time, and he'll be what everyone expected.
Yeah, I think I go back and forth with Ke'Bryan Hayes. Sometimes I watch him and I'm like, wow, this guy can do anything possibly want. And then other times he just goes on like long extended stretches of really struggling offensively. And it's not too late for him to put it all together. I feel like in the second half of this past season, he seemed like he was lifting the ball a little bit more, pulling some more balls. I think I'm back in.
Back in? All right.
Yeah.
But Gold Glove, no question, he deserves it. He deserved it last year. He deserves it again, and probably a Platinum Glove. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
All right.
With the Arenado thing, it's almost like he's not bad, obviously.
No, he was getting it based on name and reputation for a while.
His name and reputation, but he also definitely dropped off this year, and it was pretty public too. Like a lot of people figured this out pretty quickly that, hey,
well, and he figured it out, and kind of halfway through the season, you could see a change in him where he went back to being closer to what he was. But I mean, when you're not great defensively for half a season, that stands out. Like, you can't just make up for it in the second half.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy that he was able to get it back. Maybe I shouldn't be too surprised. Like, obviously he's shown that level before, but like at the same time, how do you just like seemingly change overnight?
The weirder part to me is that he fell off, not that he was able to get it back. It's almost like he got lax and just quit working as hard as he was before. And as soon as it stopped working out for him, then he went, oh shit, I need to put some effort in here to get back to where I was.
Well, that doesn't sound like Nolan Arenado.
It doesn't, but it kind of feels like what happened, just based on the results and how normal people are. That's what it feels like happened.
Well, I feel like it's more physical than anything. Like, it's got to be like he just.
But how did it overnight? Did he fix it then? If it's physical,
well, yeah, that's my question.
Like, if it's mental, I get it.
Could have been, yeah.
If it's physical, I don't.
Yeah, he had to work harder, work twice as hard to get it back. I don't know.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's a little weird, but we'll see if he can get back to it next year. But I do think this is Ke'Bryan Hayes' award for basically the rest of time. So... then after the Gold Gloves on November 5th, we get the Silver Sluggers on November 9th. And a couple notes that I had about those. The American League Shortstop Award was a little bit interesting. So Corey Seager and Bobby Witt were nominated. And these came out today, by the way. About 10 hours ago, maybe, is when this went live. But then the third finalist for Silver Slugger at shortstop was actually J.P. Crawford, and not Bo Bichette, which is a little bit weird because both guys had about 20 home runs. J.P. had 19, Bo Bichette had 20. The difference in those guys is Bo Bichette was actually pretty close to leading the league in hits. I think he ended up getting injured kind of late in the year, only played 130 games, but still had 175 hits on the season. J.P. Crawford, on the other hand, about 142. J.P. had like a 250 average. Bo Bichette was over 300. So you would look at those numbers and be like, well, why is J.P. Crawford a finalist and Bo Bichette is not? The difference lies in the fact that J.P. Crawford took almost 100 walks this season. Took 94 traditional walks and 1 intentional walk, which brought his... he was
an OBP machine this year.
Yeah, his OBP was 360, 380?
Yeah, it's super impressive, and he was atop their lineup every day. Obviously, Bichette has the amazing elite skill of contact. In fact, there's like few players in the league that have better bat to ball skills than Bo Bichette, but I would make the case that his season was very disappointing, and I think the voters recognize that. His power kind of dropped off. He never took walks in the first place, and that continued this season. I mean, you're not really hitting for power, and you're just more of like a singles hitter, really, then you're a lot less valuable than a guy like, I mean, I'm not saying that he's like...
Counterpoint, Luis Arraez is a finalist for a Silver Slugger.
Well, he did it so much better than Bichette, right? He hit 30 points or 40 points higher.
I mean, if you're going to use logic, yeah, but shut up.
Different position too, right?
True.
Yeah.
But the other big thing for JP and Corey Seager, for dummies like me who don't really understand all of the advanced stats, if you just look at their WRC plus, their weighted runs created, averaged across the league, JP Crawford was actually 10% better than Bo Bichette at a 134 WRC plus versus a 125.
Yeah.
So
it's Crawford's season is going to be one that's always going to be underappreciated because he doesn't have big home run totals. He doesn't have,
it was
an amazing batting average.
It was underappreciated as it was happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was really good this year, both defensively and offensively.
So these voters are getting smarter, right? They're not voting for Nolan Arenado, and they're voting for JP Crawford.
You shut up. They're getting dumber because they didn't vote for Nolan Arenado. They're getting smarter because they voted for JP Crawford. I hate you. Shut up.
But Nolan Arenado had more RBIs.
I know. And he's a finalist for a Silver Slugger, I might add.
Yeah.
So the other thing with the Silver Slugger is we actually have 3 players across all of the major leagues that are dual nominated or dual finalists in both their position and the utility position. One of them in the American League being Isaac Paredes, nominated at both third base and utility. And then in the National League, you have both Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts nominated for the outfield and utility. And I think we might get multiple dual Silver Sluggers this year.
And I think it's possible to be a dual Gold Glover too, because there's a utility award as well.
I don't know that there are
people
nominated, are there?
Yeah, there's a couple. I think Kim Ha-sung is nominated for 2 positions, and there might be someone else. I don't remember.
I'll get it pulled up right quick.
I looked at those a long time ago. But yeah, that would be. I was wondering
Walls,
if you're eligible to win both, but I guess you are if you're a finalist. Cody Bellinger is an interesting one because he's got that unique combination of.
Dubon is double finalist for second base and utility. And then in the National League, that's Edmund Kim.
Probably Betts.
Yeah, Betts at right field.
I think Kim for second base.
And I think... yeah, Kim at second base. Why did I think that Edmund was double? He's not, but I thought he was. So yeah, so we do have actually a chance for there to be dual Gold Glove and dual Silver Slugger. Although my point was more that I think it's likely that we're going to have dual Silver Sluggers. Is Betts at utility and at outfield, and then Bellinger. Like either one of those could be. I think Betts is probably more likely to get utility. But there's 3 Gold Gloves in the outfield, right?
I think so.
Or 3 Silver Sluggers, sorry. 3 Silver Sluggers in the outfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like one of those 2 could win dual.
Probably, yeah.
Right. And then I guess the last thing on awards is that then after that, the 13th, we get the Rookies of the Year. 14th, the Managers of the Year. The 15th, the Cy Youngs. And finally, on the 16th, we get Shohei and Ronald Acuna. Sorry, the MVP awards that have not been named yet. Did I correct that appropriately?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So that finishes up a very long but very jam-packed This Week in Baseball / award season, spelled capital SZN in the rundown, because I'm hip to the times and we're cool. So, you know. there anything else we need to talk about today, or should we just call it here? Nothing else.
We got to talk about the World Series, man.
The what?
The what?
Tell me more.
The who? The who won the World Series?
What is this? Texas Rangers. Who'd they play?
The Arizona Diamondbacks.
I didn't watch it.
It was amazing.
Interesting. Feels very lowly rated.
It was. But all of America missed out except the 9 million people or whatever.
Except for us.
Yeah.
Pretty much. All right. Tell me everything you know about the World Series. Go.
I just want to start at the last game, I think, which was yesterday. And it was a really tense game at the beginning with both the aces going, Zach Gallen and Nathan Eovaldi, big game pitcher. And Zach Gallen was just mowing down the Rangers. All the Rangers were being super aggressive, swinging at like first and second pitches, just putting a lot of balls weakly into play. And Zach Gallen actually had a no-hitter into the 6th inning. And they left him pitching, and Nathan Eovaldi was basically matching him with zeros.
He was matching him with zeros, but Eovaldi did not look nearly as sharp.
Yeah, he got out of a ton of big jams. He seemed to, get out of all those jams like he did. He didn't give up any runs, but
I think at one point he had the bases loaded with 1 out.
Yep.
And then at another point he had 2 on with maybe no outs or 1 out again, and kept getting out of it. Whereas Gallen, 1, 2, 3 innings, one after another.
It felt like such a typical baseball thing for one team to miss all those opportunities to score, and then their pitcher be cruising, and then the script like completely flips, and the other team,
the cruising pitcher gives up the run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it started off with just a little off the end of the bat, opposite field hit by Seager, and then it was followed up by 2 more hits, and then that was really the only 2 runs that Texas would need to take care of Arizona. But I don't know. It was.
They ended up scoring much more than that, by the way.
They did, yeah. And
that's Marcus just all Semien they needed.
Had a massive home run. I was so happy to see him have big hits in games 3, 4, and 5 after he was really cold for most of the postseason, and had that big home run that basically made it like no doubt that the Rangers were going to win it. 3-run bomb.
Yeah. So that was a big, big game. I mean, I think coming into that series, it felt kind of weird because it's like everyone was calling for it to be a 7-game series, including us. But I think pretty much everybody, including us, also made the caveat that if the Rangers remembered how to hit, this was going to be a very quick series.
They never forgot how to hit. They mashed their way through the entire postseason. They've been the Rangers.
They kind of forgot in games 1 and 2. They got lucky in game 1. Really.
It was literally that one game that the Diamondbacks played perfectly in game 2.
Yeah,
all the other games,
they've done great. I wouldn't really give a whole lot of credit to the offense really until really late in the game.
Well, why does that matter, though? Is the beginning of the game weighted differently than the end?
I would say the first 8 innings, maybe a little bit.
Why?
8 innings versus 1. Because they came back from essentially a 5-run deficit. That's not an easy thing to do.
The offense. Yeah. That's good on the offense.
It's good on the offense late in the game. The offense sucked at the beginning of the game is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they did. I'm saying that doesn't matter, though. The game's 9 innings.
Fair. But my point is that we can't just say they never forgot how to hit, because they did.
You can say that about literally every team in the history of baseball.
Yeah, they all forget how to hit.
Yeah, that's
I don't know how to throw a ball. You watched me spike it into the ground at Fenway Park 3 times. Same thing. I really thought that was going to get a chuckle. No? You're not just picturing me spiking the ball straight into the ground in front of a whole bunch of little kids trying to measure the velocity that I could throw?
Not really.
Dang. Well, anyway, the Tejas Rangers did manage to win that game. They managed to win that series. And this was a really, really, really big deal for the city of Dallas, for the franchise of the Texas Rangers. Not the Dallas Rangers. I would like to point out that was the original proposed name for the Dallas Cowboys. We don't care about them. Only the Texas Rangers of Arlington. But they've been around, as I mentioned earlier today, since 1961. In the 11 years that they were in Washington, they were not a good franchise. They did not make the postseason at all. When they moved to Texas, they did not make the postseason from 72 until 94. That is not good at all, especially because we did actually have championship rounds in that time frame. They did not make one. It took them the beginning of the division series to make one. They got swept. They then got swept again in 98, again in 99. And then it took them all the way to 2010 before they actually did anything. So the fact that this franchise went through all of that crap, made it through 2010 and 11, where they made it to the World Series and lost it, and then went back into 100 lost teams, and then finally 2 years after they lost 100 games, wins a World Series for the first time ever. That's huge for the city of Dallas. It's huge for the state of Texas. Like, they have Houston. Houston's won some World Series here in the very recent past, but this was their... This is one of their big teams. Like, Dallas is one of their biggest cities. The city of Dallas has not had a championship in a long time in any sport. The Cowboys suck. I think I mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
I would like to reiterate that fact now. The Cowboys suck. They have not won a Super Bowl since 1988.
Has it really been that long? They didn't win any in the 90s?
Nope.
Okay, so, yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't even realize how bad this team was until we were looking them up before this show. And their fan base is just like tortured. They usually are, terrible. They don't even make the playoffs. And then when they do, they haven't really done much. And then the way they lost the last time they were in the World Series was one of the most heartbreaking things you can possibly imagine. They were literally one strike away from winning the World Series.
Didn't break my heart.
Only Cardinals fans, but that's brutal. That's obviously got to be top of mind for all Rangers fans, and it was kind of they finally did it, and I wouldn't say that a lot of people had faith that the Rangers would actually do it, and that's mostly because of what they've shown in the past in their history, and this team was different because they just kind of made all really good moves. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit, right?
Yeah, but I just want to say the expectation where it didn't feel like they could do it also kind of stemmed from the fact that here the last 2.5 months, their 3 quote-unquote reliable bullpen arms have been anything but. So you couple that in, even though this team throughout the postseason pretty much dominated. They won every single road game that they played. All 10. Which is an impressive feat that we should be talking about anyway. But doing it with 3 relievers that, even as they were doing that, did not look locked in. They struggled. They worked. They got through it. And they won the games. All props to Bochy. All props to that team. The pure grit that they had to just grind through those even when they weren't playing well. Kudos.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just go through some of the things that they overcame this year. They lost their ace starting pitcher, Jacob deGrom. They had Corey Seager miss a bunch of time. They had
Eovaldi miss a significant amount of time,
missed
right?
a bunch of time and came back and he struggled a lot. They had Josh Young break a wrist or a finger or something.
Hamate bone, I think.
They had Jonah Heim miss time. They had a ton of injuries this year, and that didn't really phase them. They were in first place most of the season. They kind of fell off at the end, ended up losing the division lead to the Astros.
Kind of forgot some key points in there. They traded for Max Scherzer, Jordan Montgomery, some relievers, and then Max Scherzer promptly got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt, and they could have just given up basically when they lost the division and said, "Oh, we just snuck into the playoffs," and they basically had to play an extra round of the postseason. They got through that. They had that really tough game that they blew against the Astros in the championship series, and they battled back, and then they absolutely crushed the Astros in 2 games on the road. As we've been talking about, they're so good on the road. And here in the World Series, they lost their hottest hitter, other than Corey Seager, in Adolis Garcia.
And they lost Max Scherzer again.
Yeah, right. And they just keep finding other ways to win. They find other players to step up. And it was like, I guess you kind of have to do pretty much everything right to win the World Series. And they were that team this year.
Yeah, and I'm very, very impressed with what they were able to do. I was personally pulling for Arizona. I don't think that was a secret. If it was, sorry, I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit. Really wanted Arizona to win. I wanted Longo to get his championship. I figured Texas would have another shot, probably next year based on how their history goes. But, you know, very, very proud of Texas. It was really fun to watch, even though the series ended up 4-1. Like, on paper, it does not look that fun, but Arizona was not really, they didn't just lay down and die. Like, that first game, Arizona dominated until about the 8th inning, and then they gave up some runs. They ended up giving up the tying run in, I think, the 9th on a home run to Corey Seager. They ended up getting walked off in the 11th by Adolis Garcia. Like, they were in that through 11 innings. Then game 2, they come out and just flat out dominate the Rangers. I think they put up 10 runs. Game 2?
No, game 2 is the one that Arizona won.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That was the one where they scored a bunch of runs late, but it was pretty close at the beginning.
Yeah, but ultimately, they dominated that game. Then we get into Arizona and they lose 3 straight. And that's kind of the point where it looked like they kind of just didn't have anything left in the tank. I mean, they had to turn to a bullpen game in game 4, which I think we all kind of knew was going to happen. And right from the get-go, Joe Mantiply did not have it.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of set the tone for that game 4. There was no shot. And once you lost game 4, you go down 3-1 in the series. It is very, very hard to come back from. Yeah. And then Gallen gave it everything he had. Gave up 1 run before he came out of the game. And then they ended up losing 5-1 yesterday. That sound right?
Did the Diamondbacks score yesterday?
I thought so.
5-0. 5-0.
5-0.
Yeah. But yeah, I think
just
the guy that
pity run, that's all that was. Don't worry about it.
The guy that we haven't really talked about that was absolutely huge for the playoff run was Nathan Eovaldi, who was really great in all his starts except for game 1 of the World Series, and he continued his track record of being a big game pitcher. We did not see this coming on the podcast. I was just thinking he would continue how he was pitching right at the end of the season when he was just absolutely terrible. And he completely flipped a switch. I don't know whether that was just him getting healthy. People say like he locks in the postseason. I don't know what I believe, but like the results are the results. The guy did exactly what Texas needed because they only had a handful of actual starting pitchers. They had like 2.5 starting pitchers really in this postseason run. They were able to go all the way with that.
The other kind of big thing that just when you mention guys that were kind of big factors that we haven't talked a whole lot about, it reminded me of the two guys that are big factors that we have talked a lot about, just not tonight. And that's both Evan Carter for the Rangers and Ketel Marte for the Diamondbacks. And both of those guys had streaks that were going into the beginning of the series. And I asked the question, how long would they continue? Whose would end first? Well, the answer was they end the same day. Both Evan Carter and Ketel Marte continued their streaks. On base for Evan Carter. Granted, he had a hit in every single game of the postseason, the exception of Game 2 against Houston, where he took a walk, but did not get a hit.
I thought there was a game where he didn't have a hit in this series, too.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Oh, I thought there was another one earlier.
Nope. He had 2 hits in Game 1. Oh, wait, hold on. Did he not play one of the games?
No, he played every game. Games. Why? Why wouldn't he play one of the games?
He's only played in 4 games this series. 26th, 27th, 27th, 28th, 30th, 31st. It's the only 4 games he played.
Wait, which day did you use? 27th, 28th?
30th, and 31st.
He didn't play yesterday? That doesn't make sense. He did definitely play yesterday. He went 1 for 5.
Oh. That's awkward. MLB's game logs thing separates it by month, and I saw another blue heading and thought it said totals.
Oops.
I found it. Okay, never mind. Ketel's lasted longer by a day. Because Ketel's ended yesterday. Evan Carter's ended on the 31st. That'll do it. But, yeah. Absolutely phenomenal streaks for both of those guys. Evan Carter had... How many games is that? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15. 15 game on base streak. Ketel Marte had a 20-game hit streak in his postseason career. Both of them ended here in the last 2 days of the series, but those guys were huge for both of these teams. Like, it's not like they were just getting on base one time and that was it for the day. Like, Evan Carter went like 2 for 2 with 2 walks, 1 for 2 with a walk, 1 for 2 with 2 walks, 1 for 4 with a walk. Like, they're constantly on base. I think in the month of October, Evan Carter had a 433 on base percentage.
Yeah, postseason 300, 417 with a 917 OPS.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. And Ketel Marte was not a whole lot different. Like, I think he might have been a little bit worse. Not by much.
Yeah, they're both great. And I think we have to mention the Diamondbacks. They have an up-and-coming team. Like, every single player is going to be back with them, with the exception of
Lourdes,
Gurriel, and Longoria. So they're returning all their young guys. Not saying that they can get back. It's going to be a tough road once again. There's tons of good teams in the National League, but they've got to be considered one of the good teams in the National League at this point now.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they can get another starting pitcher on the free agent market, and they have a legit at least 4-man rotation come the postseason next year, they'll be a very formidable opponent.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else on the World Series? There's so much more. I don't even know where to go with it.
Yeah, I think it would be bad if we had this podcast and we didn't mention Corey Seager and Marcus Semien a little bit.
That's a good point. I mean, Corey Seager was the World Series MVP. We probably should talk about him.
Incredible. Guy has now won World Series MVP 2 times in his career. And
with 2 different teams.
Only other guy to do that, Reggie Jackson.
Only one likable team. Again, like Reggie Jackson.
I'm surprised that there's actually been 4 multi-time World Series MVPs. I don't know who the other 2 are. Do you know? Was it like Derek Jeter or something?
Jeter sounds right.
Yeah.
Sandy Koufax and Bob Gibson.
Okay.
Which both of those were in the 60s for both. So it was 63. Okay. 63, Sandy Koufax. 64, Bob Gibson. 65, Sandy Koufax. Skip 66. 67, Bob Gibson.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, Corey Seager just feels like he's going to be one of those guys that maybe now he won't, that he's won another World Series, but he just feels like he always kind of flies under the radar because he's not flashy. He literally says nothing interesting ever. He just kind of shows up and dominates when he plays.
Okay, what do you think about this for a comp? He is second MVP Bryce.
No, you can't compare him to Bryce because Bryce has always been extremely hyped.
But Bryce has been so hyped that he's been underhyped. He was overhyped to the point where he was underhyped. But
Seager was never really hyped. He was just good.
Gavin Lux is never hyped.
Gavin Lux is hurt. Overhyped, maybe, and hurt. Yeah.
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 Then Marcus Semien, the other half of their $500 million infield.
Yeah, he is one of my favorite players in the league just because of his Iron Man nature. Guys missed like 1 game in the last 4 full seasons. He looked so tired after the World Series. He literally looked like get this man like a full night of rest. They put up the stat during the game that he had surpassed the most number of plate appearances by any player in the history of baseball. It was like 830 something, including postseason. So it's incredible what he does, what he must be playing through, and he was the leader in WAR this season in the American League. And Seager's great and everything, but health, availability, that's a skill too. And
what was the number of plate appearances you said?
It was like over 830.
Do you want to give a specific number?
834.
835.
835. Okay, so that was maybe when he had one more at bat or something. I don't know.
But no, that's absolutely insane, though. Like the fact that this man, since the COVID season, had 724, 724, 753 in the regular seasons, and then added 82 more plate appearances in the postseason this year.
And he's not a young guy, too. He's 33.
Yeah.
So it's inspirational for me to see him do that like every day, because there's not a lot of players that really play 162 anymore.
Yeah. It's just absolutely nuts. Why did he miss that game in 2022? I kind of want to go ask him.
He must have been very hurt.
Was he just lazy?
Yeah, he's a very lazy man.
He feels like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a wild end to the year. I mean, just thinking about the postseason as a whole, this did not go the way that Vegas or most people thought it would go. I think Vegas is a fairly decent representation of how just the general population thinks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It did not go how people would thought. Like, the favorites were what? The Braves, the Dodgers, then maybe the Astros or Orioles?
Yeah, those are the top 4 teams in both the leagues, and three of them got bounced in the first round. Or the second round, but
yeah. And then the last one bounced in the CS in Game 7, but
it was a 5 seed and a 6 seed. I think Texas is not a true 5 seed. They were better. They're like a better team.
Yeah, they were like a 3.5 ultimately.
Yeah, they were a very good team during the regular season.
No, it was just wild to me that we come in, all the favorites are bounced. You get these two young well, I guess Texas is maybe not a young team per se, because I mean, you do have Corey Seager, you do have Marcus Semien, you do have a rotation that by the time the postseason came around was Scherzer, Eovaldi, John Gray's not exactly a young man at this point. Jordan Montgomery and one more,
Andrew Heaney. So they're all guys that are like near 30 or over 30.
Yeah, those guys are all old. But then at the same time, you've got Jonah Heim, Josh Young. I guess Jonah Heim's really not all that young either,
and neither is Josh Young. So they're not really a young team, but they've got like young play, like they've got
inexperienced. Yeah, they're an inexperienced team, and Josh Young, Jonah Heim. Some of these other guys, Adolis Garcia, still relatively inexperienced, only in his 3rd full season in the majors. Like, it feels like this is a team that still has another step to go. They managed to get here while they're still at like this level, and they can get to here. You get Arizona, who's probably here, and I think they could probably get to here. I think they have a higher ceiling than this Rangers team does, ultimately, if they can figure out their pitching. That's kind of the key for them. But people did not appreciate this World Series as much as they should have. At all. And that's evidenced by the ratings. It gets the worst rated World Series since 2016, right?
No, not since 2016.
Well, since before, like 2016, way up here, and then it just was a steady decline, right?
Yeah. 2016 was a peak, but ever since then, it's been dropping pretty much by year.
Yeah.
And this year didn't help with the matchup, and that's too bad because it was actually a good matchup with some fresh faces.
Yeah. So we really need to figure out how to market this, because when you get 2 new teams with a whole bunch of young superstars, you should be marketing the crap out of that. Mm-hmm. Trying to get people to watch it and recognize how good of a series this is. Sure, it's not the Dodgers versus the Yankees, which is the easiest thing to sell ever. But I would argue this is better in a whole lot of ways. Why are we not doing a better job of marketing this?
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts? I'm sure we could continue to talk about this for like another 3 days.
Let's just call it here and say thanks to everyone for listening this season.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Very, very much. We have kind of hit another growth spurt this year. So if you guys have kind of been following us for 127 full-length episodes, 4 minisodes, 2 Jeopardy episodes, and probably a few other things that I'm forgetting about, plus all of our watch parties, like, we've kind of hit a little bit of a growth spurt here. And we are very, very, very thankful to every single one of you that listens on a weekly basis, on even just a passing every now and again basis. It really means a lot. We are going to take a little bit of time here next week and kind of recuperate from the World Series, kind of figure out what we want to do as our plan for the postseason, or for the not the postseason, the off season. I'm potentially going to be doing some work travel, so we'll be a little bit more sporadic here the next couple weeks, just as I get that figured out and we figure out how we're gonna do this through the off season. But if you guys have any thoughts, any questions, any suggestions, please reach out to us in our Discord server or on the Twitter machine and let us know kind of what you're thinking, what you want to hear, what you want to see. We are going to try and do some more Jeopardy episodes this off season. We have a couple people in the Discord server that are very interested in providing some questions for that. So if you would like to help with that, make sure to join our Discord, and you can help provide some clues there that Gautam and I will not read. We will have someone come in and curate a game for us, and we will go head to head. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I think you covered it all.
All right.
Thank you.
So with that, we will call it a wrap on regular and postseason 2023. We will see you guys again here in 2 weeks.
If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.